Hello and welcome to Back to the Science. I'm Dr. Susan Oliver and I'm a scientist, and this is Cindy Oliver, and she's a dog. Now, about 2 weeks ago, Dr. John Campbell published a video entitled mRNA in Blood After 28 Days, where he declared it was a major scandal that mRNA was found in a blood sample 21 days after vaccination. Well, that's nothing compared with the scandal that I am about to share with you. I borrowed Doctor Who's TARDIS and travelled 28 years into the future, and it turns out that they are still finding mRNA in blood samples from people who were vaccinated in 2021. Okay, I'm making it up. I've never even met Doctor Who, let alone been in his TARDIS. But if you could travel 28 years into the future, you would absolutely find mRNA in blood of vaccinated people, as well, of course, as the unvaccinated, because mRNA is present in every cell in your body. But by not mentioning that, you can make mRNA sound pretty scary, because the average person has no reason to know anything about mRNA. And just to give you an example of this, I recently shared this tweet about someone whose advice to someone who had accidentally drank from the cup of a vaccinated person was that they could save their life by gargling and swallowing their own urine. And in case you're wondering, the pun was intended when I said, not sure if this person is taking the piss. Now, as usual, I got lots of abusive comments back, par for the course, but this one made me laugh. Rather drink piss than take mRNA. Now, urine contains both mRNA in cells as well as extracellular mRNA. So this person would actually be both drinking piss and taking mRNA. Now, of course, John isn't talking about this type of mRNA. He is talking about the super scary vaccine mRNA. Let's hear a bit of what he has to say.
We had been led to believe that messenger RNA vaccines only stayed in the blood for a very short period of time. But we're going to be looking at work from Denmark today, not from New Zealand, not from Canada, not from the UK, not from the United States, where you might expect this sort of work to be done because this is where the large producers are, especially in the United States. But this work's from Denmark, and it shows that 9.3% of people that were injected with these vaccines still had the messenger RNA, the ribonucleic acid, in their blood after 28 days.
Now, I'm not sure if John is deliberately lying here or if he just didn't understand the paper, but they only found vaccine mRNA in one patient at 28 days. So it's 0.93% of patients, not 9.3%. And they only found fragments of mRNA. So this is the paper that John is misrepresenting. They took blood from 108 patients who had hepatitis C, and after removing the human RNA, they sequenced what was left. In addition to finding hepatitis C RNA, in some samples, they also found some sequences consistent with COVID vaccine mRNA. And the results are shown in this pretty chart here. Each colour represents a different sample, and there are 10 samples in all where they found vaccine mRNA. But the bottom two samples come from the same patient at different times, which means it was only found in 9 of the 108 patients. The x-axis shows which bit of the mRNA sequence they actually found, and the y-axis shows the number of reads they obtained for each sequence. And it's important to know that the y-axis is different for each sample. Also on the right-hand side of the chart is information on the time the sample was taken relative to their last dose of vaccine. Now, the first thing to note is that only one of the samples where they found vaccine mRNA was 28 days past vaccination. This is the red-coloured sample at the top of the chart. And as you can see, they didn't find a complete sequence of the mRNA. They just found a few fragments. In fact, they were only able to find the complete vaccine sequence in one of the samples they tested, and that is the magenta-coloured sample, which was taken 5 days after the second Moderna dose. So what we have here is a big, fat nothing burger. Fragments of mRNA can't do anything, and there is nothing alarming about finding them. We, of course, find exactly the same thing after COVID infections. For example, in this study, they did PCR testing on 212 blood serum samples from people who had had COVID, and 27 of them, which is 12.7%, had SARS-CoV-2 RNA up to 28 days after symptom onset. Importantly, though, although they found SARS-CoV-2 RNA, they didn't find infectious virus.
What else have we got? To our knowledge, our study is the first to detect Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna COVID-19 mRNA vaccine sequences in the blood after vaccination. This is quite incredible. We've been doing this, for over 2 years now. And the persistence of the mRNA in the blood has been found as an incidental finding. Why haven't they been looking for this? It just seems such a fundamental thing not to look for. And yet, to the knowledge of these researchers, who are very knowledgeable people, it's never been done before. Theirs is the first paper to do this.
I agree that the authors of the study are quite knowledgeable. However, they're not too crash hot at reviewing the literature. It took me less than a minute to find 2 studies that had previously examined vaccine mRNA in the blood. In this study here, which was published in January 2022, they looked for vaccine mRNA in the blood serum of breastfeeding women. And they found low levels in the serum of 27% of samples taken from 21 mothers within 7 days of vaccination. And in this study here, which was published in June 2022, they found vaccine mRNA in samples taken up to 15 days post-vaccination, but they didn't find it in a sample that was taken at 27 days, although they only tested samples from one person at 27 days. They used quantitative PCR to detect the mRNA, so we don't know whether they were complete sequences of mRNA present or just fragments. And there's also this study here, which was published in Cell in January 2022. In this study, they found that both vaccine spike protein and vaccine mRNA persisted for several weeks in lymph node germinal centres, which, by the way, is a good thing.
We need to know how long the mRNA is in the blood for, because when it's in the blood, it could carry on producing more and more antigen, more and more spike protein. And that means that some people could end up with one heck of a lot more spike protein than others.
Wow, that's just terrifying, except for the fact that it's not true. In the biomedicine study, which we previously mentioned, they also tested whether white blood cells would actually produce spike protein if incubated with vaccine. And they showed that they didn't. So white blood cells will not start producing spike protein, even if they do come into contact with vaccine mRNA. And the picture that you are looking at here is our Western blot, and it is showing that there is no difference between cells incubated with vaccine and control cells. Lanes 1 to 5 are the spike protein at different concentrations, and you can clearly see that it shows up just above 25 kilodaltons. Lanes 6, 9 and 12 are the control cells that weren't incubated with vaccine, and the other lanes are the cells that were incubated with vaccine. As you can see, there is nothing showing for any of the cells that corresponds to the spike protein. We also know from the Cell paper that I also previously mentioned that although minimal amounts of spike protein are detected in blood soon after vaccination, no spike protein is detected in the blood at 21 days post-vaccine. And that the amount of spike protein detected after the second dose of vaccine is greatly reduced compared with the first dose. We also know that the amount of spike protein detected in the blood is no greater than the amount detected during infection. And in some infected people, the amount of spike protein is orders of magnitude higher. This chart here shows the spike concentration detected versus days after the first dose, which means beyond 21 days is after our second dose. The dotted red line is the cutoff limit for a positive finding. The reason that much less spike protein is detected after the second dose is because the vaccine is doing its job and stimulating the immune system to produce antibodies against spike. And these antibodies are binding to the spike protein like they are supposed to do, which means no free spike protein is circulating. So even if spike protein could be produced by white blood cells, it would be bound by antibodies.
Initially, of course, we were told it lived for a very short time. We were told it stayed in the arm. Then we learnt it most certainly doesn't stay in the arm. It circulates systemically, even if it's given in a muscle. We've just learnt it goes to the spleen. If it's given inadvertently into a vessel, even more so, more systemic distribution. So we've been looking at and we haven't been looking at this. First we were told it's not systemically absorbed. Now we know it is. Then we were told it's only there for a short period of time, or we were told that right at the beginning, and now we know it's not, up to 28 days. What else is going to come out? It's a bit of a scandal, actually.
It's a bit of a scandal that John is making misinformation videos about things that he just doesn't understand, and that YouTube is letting him get away with it. We have always known that vaccines will enter the systemic circulation. This was literally included in the data that was presented to the regulatory authorities before they were approved for use. We know that vaccines are delivered to the draining lymph nodes. This is expected and necessary. And we also know that vaccine components have to use the circulatory system to exit the body when they are no longer required. You really don't want the vaccine just to stay in your arm forever.
So it's expected to naturally decompose both within the cytosol, that's within the cells. After translation, that translation means that when the RNA is converted into the spike protein, and at the injection site. Half-life of mRNA after translation estimated from hours to days, with no RNA rather being detected after 10 days. That's what we were told, but clearly not the case.
This is just bizarre. John thinks translation means mRNA is converted into spike protein. It doesn't. Translation is a process by which a protein is synthesized from the information contained in mRNA. The mRNA itself is not converted. So John claiming that we were told mRNA is supposed to disappear after 10 days is just an extension of his ignorance. He is confusing the end of translation with the end of mRNA because he doesn't know what translation means.
We expect that vaccine mRNA detected in the plasma is contained within lipid nanoparticles. Now, that's what they expect, but they don't know that. So an obvious thing to do is check. Now, if there was RNA which is not in the original lipid nanoparticles, that would indicate that there's been replication of the RNA.
What? No. mRNA can't just replicate by itself. It requires RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. This is present in viruses, but it isn't present in human cells. It is completely impossible for vaccine mRNA to replicate in the human body. I can't believe John can honestly think this. And by the way, if you do want to know more about how RNA viruses use RNA-dependent RNA polymerase to replicate, Professor Vincent Racaniello of TWiV fame has an excellent video about it as part of his virology course. And by the way, the whole course is excellent. And I will provide a link to it in this video's description. And the TWiV team have also covered this paper and John's misrepresentation of it on a recent TWiV episode. So it's not just me saying that John is wrong, it's actual qualified virologists and immunologists.
In Denmark. And if it had been done in another country, if this had been done in Canada or New Zealand or Australia, I'm just asking myself, thinking out loud now, would this have been published? Would this have ever seen the light of day? Are publications controlled in other countries more than publications are controlled in Denmark? Who knows?
Wow. Nothing like suggesting a conspiracy to get the juices flowing. As a scientist who publishes work in Australia, I can assure John that I don't have to check with anyone other than the paper's co-authors before submitting a manuscript to a journal. No idea who this nefarious group that he thinks is controlling publications is supposed to be. And of course, none of the other studies that we covered in this video that John didn't know about were from Denmark.
But there we are. A future prospective study, so they're saying this, to establish the half-life of mRNA vaccines in vaccine recipients could be performed. And that could be done remarkably easy. You wouldn't even need their sophisticated viral genomic analysing equipment that they're using in Denmark. That could be done simply with PCR tests.
Now, the authors did indeed say this. They also said something else after it, which John inexplicably chose not to share. Anyway, I'll read it out to you. It should be emphasised that our data does not in any way change the conclusion that both mRNA vaccines are safe and effective. And that's the bottom line. There is nothing in the paper that is remotely concerning. John is just scaremongering using non-scientific nonsense in an attempt to get his viewers riled up. If you'd like to look further into the data I've presented, I've provided links in the video's description. And please remember, this video is about the science, but you shouldn't take it as medical advice. For that, you should speak to your medical practitioner. If you've got this far, thank you for listening. And if you've liked or commented on the video, double thank you, because that helps the algorithm and means that more people will see the video. And of course, thank you to everyone who has bought me a coffee or little Cindy here a treat. We really appreciate your support. We will be continuing to make videos about the science and particularly debunking misinformation in the future. So if you'd like to see them, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.